Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at section 1.10, which is looking at percent change. The first thing that I want to go over is when you will be using a formula that is called the percent change formula. This formula will be used anytime that you are prompted for asking to find any of the following: the percent change, the percent increase, or the percent decrease. Anytime that you are asked to find any of those, you will use this formula. The formula is final minus, and I should actually space this out a little bit more. Give me one sec. You're going to take your final amount. Whoops. Minus your initial amount, and divide all of that by your initial amount, and then multiply that by 100. Okay, so looking at A, it says the population of a town increased from 40,000 to 45,000 people. Find the percent change. So your initial amount is the 40,000. Your final amount is the 45,000. So we're going to do final minus initial divided by the initial amount. So this will be 45,000 minus 40,000 divided by 40,000. So for the top, we get 5,000. And when we divide that by the bottom, which is 40,000, we get 0.125. And don't forget that part of the formula is to multiply by 100. So we end up with 12.5%. And because this is a positive answer, we are going to end up describing this as an increase. For part B, it says sales changed from 80,000 to 68,000. Find the percent change. So our initial amount for this one is 80,000 and our final amount for this one is 68,000. So I'm going to use my final minus my initial divided by my initial. So this will be 68,000 minus 80,000 divided by, always use the initial amount, 80,000. It is okay to get a negative on the top. So for the top, we get negative 12,000 over 80,000. So this gives us negative 0.15. Don't forget, we multiply by 100. So this gives us negative 15%, or it's better to even say 15% decrease, and that's because it is a negative. For C, it says the price of an item was originally $49.50. If the price increased by 15%, what is the new cost of the item? So this is reviewing even from cycle 0. So for this one, it's not asking the percent change. It's not asking the percent increase or decrease. So this one, we want to find what the 15% is. So we're finding 15% of $49.50. So we're going to do 0.15. So to change it to a decimal, remember that you're just going to divide by 100 to change it to a decimal. So we get 0.15, and then of means to multiply, so we're going to multiply by 49.50. So we get 7.425. Because we're dealing with money, we're going to round to the nearest cent. So this will become $7.43. Okay, so that is our percent increase. So to change it and look at what our new cost of the item would be, it's an increase, so that means it's going to go up. So we are going to add the $7.43 to the original price. So we get $56.93. For part D, it says the population of a city was originally 120,000 people. If the price decreased by 7.52%, what is the new population? So for this one, again, we're not trying to find a percent change, increase or decrease. We're given what it changes by. So we're going to find 7.52% of 120,000. So to change this to a decimal, I'm going to divide by 100. So I get 0.0752, and I'm going to multiply that with 120,000. So we get 9,024 people. This is saying that it decreased, so that means that we're going to subtract. So we're going to take our original 120,000 and subtract the 9,024. So we end up with 110,976 people. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick review of the topics that we have covered, even looking back to cycle 0. So now we're going to go ahead and look at our next topic. So there are many situations in which we need to put a change in perspective. Percents give us one way to do this and allow us to make convenient comparisons. However, since it is easy to misinterpret percents, care must be taken. This section will explore several aspects of percent change. So the option 1, to find a percent increase or to apply a percent increase, is to find the percent of the number and then add that amount to the number. And this is just like what we did with the first part. So let's look at the first example and do it with the option that we are familiar with. So looking at it, this says a company's executives expect a 2% increase in sales in the upcoming year. If the company has 62,000 in sales last year, what can the executives expect the following year? So we would look at 2% of $62,000. To change it to a decimal, we're going to divide by 100 for the 2%, so I get 0.02, and then I'm going to multiply that with 62,000. So this gives us $1,240. So that's the percent increase. My second step is to add this amount to the number. So I'm going to take my original 62,000 and add the $1,240. So I get $63,240. So that's option 1. We're going to revisit this and look at what option 2 is. But I'm also going to have us apply it to a percent decrease, just to refamiliarize ourselves with this again. So option 1 is to find the percent of the number, just like we did. But in this case, because it's for a decrease, we're going to subtract the amount from the number. So this one says find 4% of $2.79 and then subtract it. So almost like we have a 4% discount. So we're going to do 4% of $2.79. So change it to a decimal by dividing by 100. So we get 0.04. And we're going to multiply that by $2.79. And we get 0.1116. We're going to round it to the nearest penny because we're dealing with money here. So we get 0.11. Because this is a decrease, we're going to subtract. So take your original $2.79 and subtract 11 cents. So we get $2.68. Okay, To do it the other option, we're going to be looking at what are called multipliers. So go ahead and add this to the top of your paper, multipliers. Multipliers help you save steps when you're trying to find the percent, apply a percent increase or apply a percent decrease. For applying a percent increase, you are going to find the multiplier. You're going to do 1 plus the percent as a decimal. For a percent decrease, you are going to do 1 minus the percent as a decimal. So to apply this to the first example, with this one we are looking at a 2% increase. So to find our multiplier, we are going to do, because it's an increase, we're going to do 1 plus the percent as a decimal. So it's going to be 1 plus 2% as a decimal. So that will be 1 plus 0.02. So our multiplier is 1.02. So the only step, once you find your multiplier, it's very simple for the next step. The only step after that is to take 62,000 and multiply that with the multiplier. So you're just going to take 62,000 times 1.02, and you end up with the same exact answer of $63,240. Looking at this example, the same idea. We're looking at a percent decrease. So to get our multiplier, because it's a decrease, it is going to be 1 minus the percent as a decimal. So this will be 1 minus 4% as a decimal. So that's 1 minus 0.04. So our multiplier is 0.96. Once we have that, all we need to do is take the original amount, 279, and multiply it by that. So we get 2.678, which rounds to $2.68, the same answer as before. All right, let's go ahead and apply this to even one more example. This one says to decrease $100 by 5% by using 2 steps and using 1 step. Let's just do the 1 step with the multiplier. So we're first going to find our multiplier. So that's going to be 1 minus the percent as a decimal. 5% as a decimal is 0.05. So we get 0.95. So all we need to do now is take $100 times 0.95, and we get a nice clean $95. We're going to do a little bit more practice with multipliers. So to find the multiplier for each percent change, remember that for an increase, I'm just going to rewrite it over here. For an increase, it is 1 plus the percent as a decimal. For a decrease, it is 1 minus the percent as a decimal. So for A, it's an increase by 22%. So this will be 1 plus, and if you take 22 divided by 100, you get 0.22. So we get 1.22. To decrease by 22%, we're going to do the same thing, except it's going to be subtracting now. So it's 1 minus 0.22. So we get 0.78. To increase by 122%, you're going to take 1 plus and 122% as a decimal. Remember, you just divide by 100, so you get 1.22. It is okay to get a number above 1 point something. It's okay to get 2 point something. So in this one, we get 2.22. And in this one, just be careful. Remember to change it to a decimal. We're dividing by 100. So we're going to get an even smaller decimal. We're going to get 0.0022. So this will be 1 minus 0.0022, which gives us 0.9978. So only a small amount less than 1. And E is just the same as part A, so we do not need to redo that one. Okay, for this next part, we're only really going to look at a few simple ones. I'm not going to worry about the other ones on the bottom. I'm only going to worry about A and B. For these ones, I want us to kind of look back at these. Anytime that we had an increase, our values were greater than 1. So anytime that we have an increase, the values are greater than 1. Anytime that we have a decrease, the values are less than 1. So when I look at this one, I want to look at what it would be like as a percent. So what I always do is I always look at what this would be as a percent. So I multiply it by 100. So that would be 137%. If I want to find out how much more percent that is than 100%, I can subtract 100% and I can see that it's 37% more than 100%. So this is an increase of 37%. This one is less than 1. So this represents a decrease. So on this one, I also am going to compare it as a percent. So I'm going to change it to a percent by multiplying by 100. So I get 63%. I know that this is less than 100%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract it from 100 this time. So I can see that it's 37% less than 100. So I can say that this is a decrease of 37%. The last thing we are going to do is look at example 5 on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and have us skip example 4. We will also skip the connect problem. Okay, looking at example 5. This says an elementary school is in a growing suburb. The school's principal estimates that the current enrollment of 530 students will increase by 3% each year for the next 10 years. By what percent will the enrollment increase over the next 10 years? Round to the nearest whole percentage as needed. Something that's interesting about this one is it doesn't ask us by how many students it's going to increase by. This asks us by what percent will the enrollment increase over the next 10 years. So we can kind of take a shortcut on this one. We can actually use multipliers. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up taking your multiplier that you get, and you're going to have the exponent be the number of years. So we know in this one that it's a 3% increase. So our multiplier will be 1 plus 3% as a decimal. So that's 1 plus 0.03. So we get 1.03. So that's our multiplier. It tells us that the number of years is 10. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my calculator 1.03 to the 10th power. And I get 1.3439. Right now, this is still as a decimal, so I'm going to change it to a percent by multiplying by 100. So I get about, if I round it to just the nearest whole percent, it's about 134%. And if I translate that to how much it increased, well, it started out as 100%. So this would be an increase of 34%. This one's a little bit tricky, so I'm going to go ahead and have us do another example of it just to kind of have a little bit of extra practice. So I'm going to take that same idea here of looking at how much percent it's increased over a certain amount of years and see what we get. So I'm just doing the same type of problem, but I'm just going to change the numbers. So let's look at it. If we had a 6% increase for 8 years, what that would be as an overall increase. So I'm going to take my multiplier times the number of years. So for this one, the multiplier for 6% increase will be 1.06, and the number of years is 8. If I type that in my calculator, I get 1.59. If you are confused about how to type an exponent in your calculator, in Google, you can just type the name of your calculator and then type in exponent and just Google that, and you can find like a short video or even an image to show you how to type it in your calculator. So change it to a percent. So that's 159%, which is the same as a 59% increase. Okay, this wraps up section 10. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.